afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Charleston Gazette Mail, Daily Mail, Charleston Gazette Opinion Page editorial board meetings with Kanawha County magistrate candidates, about a little under half of the magistrate candidates. This is on Monday, March 14th. We'll be interviewing other Kanawha County magistrate candidates on Tuesday the 15th. Broke it up into two groups just because of the size of the number of candidates. Thank you all for coming out. We really appreciate y'all being here. And we were meeting with the Daily Mail Opinion Page editorial board, the Gazette Opinion Page editorial board, as well as we have a reporter, and we'll all introduce ourselves here. So we will introduce ourselves here, and then we'll start with Mr. Sisson and just go down the road, have you introduce yourself in a real brief, 30-second maybe at the most, statement as to why you're running or about yourself, and then we'll start with questions and kind of round.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I'm Brad McElhenney. I'm co-editor of the Gazette Mail, used to be editor of the Daily Mail, and I work with the Daily Mail Opinion Page. Thank you again for being here.
I'm Kelly Merritt, Opinion Page editor for the Charleston Daily Mail.
I'm Whitney Verdine, I'm an editor.
I'm Greg Moore, I'm the city editor for the Gazette Mail.
I'm Kate White, I cover courts for the Gazette Mail. And I'm Dawn Miller, I'm the Gazette Opinion Page editor.
Go ahead, Kitty.
I'm Mike Sisson. I'm a St. Albans police officer. I worked for Union Carbide Corporation for 22 years. I served papers for the Kanawha County Sheriff's Department for 4 years before being elected to my first term of magistrate in 2012. I'm running for re-election because I love what I do. And thank you all for being here too, taking time to do this.
I'm Marva Crouch. I'm Senior Status Magistrate with the Supreme Court. I'm currently working under the Supreme Court. I've been a magistrate in Kanawha County for 4 years. The last 8 years I've been in senior status. I've enjoyed what I've done over the years. I've enjoyed the learning process that we've had over the years, the schooling, the daily learning process, because it's a continuation learning process. I enjoy being a magistrate, and I've enjoyed working in the 25 counties that I've been in the last 7 years, and it's just ongoing, and I really love being a magistrate.
Hi, my name is Kathy Ferguson. I'm a resident of Dunbar. I moved here approximately 4 years ago to take care of my ailing father. I walked away from a 25-year career in criminal justice and social services, working in and around the courts. I did that mostly in the state of Maryland, but also did that as well in Philadelphia and in New Jersey. Being here at this particular time in 2016 really presents a unique opportunity for me to give back to my community and do some important work that I think needs to be done, and that's why I'm running.
Hi, I'm Brent Hall. I'm the incumbent in Division 3. I've got about a decade of legal experience working in law firms around the city, and I've moved around a little bit too. I've been in law firms in Virginia Beach, several here, Beckley. I got a degree in legal studies, and I really enjoy my job. I mean, it's a tough job sometimes. I mean, not everybody's having their best day that comes to see us as a magistrate. And I mean, we deal with the homeless, the mentally ill. But what I really enjoy and what I'm good at is being fair and honest. I'm proving that I can do that. I would ask for your endorsement again.
Ward Harshbarger. I'm running for my 10th term. I have a degree from Marshall University at BBA. To say that I like my job, indeed I do. I've run for it several times. I think I have been good at what I've done. It shows through the elections. I appreciate your endorsements in the past. I hope I get it again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Thomas. This is my first political run. I have 35 years of public, private, and forensic vocational rehabilitation experience. I have bachelor's and master's degrees from Marshall and West Virginia University. I've worked nearly 30 years in the federal system in a legal setting. I've worked across a lot of disciplines in my career, and in legal, environments has been a primary setting for me. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's time for change, and I think I have a lot to offer in this race.
Rusty Casto. I've always loved public service. I worked in my family's hardware store for 25 years. And then I served as mayor of the great town of Nitro for 16 years. Loved every minute of it, even when the Gazette and Daily Mail was ready to shoot me on more than one occasion. I've always been intrigued by the work of the magistrates, and it's interesting, and I'm going to try to give it a try and see if I can win and do a good job for the people of Kanawha County. Every job I've ever had, I've tried to do my best, and this would be no exception.
Very good. Thank you very much. And again, we'll have the other additional candidates for the Kanawha County Magistrate tomorrow. So just you kind of answered this question, but to start out, I'm suspecting that a lot of the general public hasn't had a lot of experience with the magistrate system. They probably don't know, in large part, what the magistrates do. Some people probably get a lot of experience with magistrates and some get none at all. And so, what are the key qualities that a magistrate must possess for the unique role that they have? And we'll go in reverse order this time.
I feel any job you do, the number one quality is you got to be honest and upfront with people. To me, honesty is the name of the game. You got to be dedicated to your job. You got to love Monday mornings as much as you love Friday afternoons. You're doing this for the people, not for yourself. And I put my whole heart into jobs that I get. The magistrate work will be no exception.
I think the important thing in the magistrate's office is for a person to have a strong sense of professional integrity, to be honest, fair, and impartial, but also to uphold the law and do the duties that they are sworn to do, and that is uphold the law. We see people, as you said, people don't really understand what goes on in the magistrate court, nor do they understand the amount of law that is administered there. I think if we combined all of the cases that are heard in magistrate court and compare them to the other courts, that they're outweighed. That's the everyday first line court that most people encounter. So I think it's important that we have a professional environment there, and then we treat people with respect, but also uphold the duties that we're sworn to uphold.
Bastion that protects the public from a police state. We are number one when people are in trouble, when you are arrested for drunk driving, when you are in crisis, there's fighting within the family, when there is mental hygiene, when the state is seizing children. You have to be able to deal with that and the responses from the people that you have in front of you. You know, when you come before a magistrate, it's not always the best of times. And you have to be able to try and keep things calm. You've got to try and keep people from getting hurt. You've got to also, as we all know, with the costs that are now coming, you can't be throwing people in jail willy-nilly. We understand there is a cost. There's $50 every time it clicks. You have to be able to use some common sense. You have to be able to deal with people at crisis points. You just have to be able to go forward and deal with everything that comes across your board. You know, it's just how to explain. When you come down there, you can see, come down when day court is rocking, you have people lined up through the building. You have domestic violence is going on over to the side. You have people that are being arraigned. You have to be able to handle it. And let's not forget the phones. You can't be perfect. There are times you don't use perhaps as good a judgment as you should. But it's there, you have to deal with it.
I think they're kind of hitting it on the head. I mean, it's judicial temperament is the main thing that I think that makes a good magistrate. Someone you're going to deal with, like I touched on a minute ago, you're going to deal with really different, hard people to deal with. I mean, you're going to deal with mentally ill people, homeless people, and you got to stay calm and know how to deal with these people. And that's what I bring to the table. I'm real good with talking to people, being with people, and every case has to be heard on a case-by-case decision. I mean, you can't just say, this is how I'm going to handle this case, or this is how I'm going to handle this case, because every case is different. And while people are going to get mad at you as a magistrate, most people really understand as long as they get their fair say and they feel like they got their opportunity to say their piece and their feel. Most people are pretty understanding about things that magistrates do, I feel like.
Boy, I always thought you were running for president.
Well, that's all I have. I'll pass the stick.
It's not too late.
Well, as this is my first time running, there are certainly certain elements about the magistrates' courts that I'm not privy to. I haven't served in that position. And what I can tell you is that from my experience with working with courts, is that crimes and things that happen have ripple effects. They don't always affect just the immediate victim or the respondent in that case. Very often it touches the lives of their family members who become secondary victims. It also impacts their job places. It also then impacts the economics of the area. So those are all things I think that we need to be mindful of. And similar to what Brent just mentioned about one-size-fits-all approaches, I certainly think that that's not a thing that we should do. A lot of individuals, when they've been serving for an extended period of time, things become rather rote, and there's protocols that just sometimes aren't necessarily adhered to, but it just becomes a matter of judging the individual and not the cases. So my emphasis would be in actually looking at the cases as they come in. Now the statutes don't change, the laws don't change, the rules and procedures don't change, but individuals that come into the courts, every person is different. Every set of facts and every set of circumstances is different. So you have to actually look at them uniquely and actually apply the laws for those particular situations. I think that's very important. My edict is really to enhance public safety, to hold offenders accountable, and to ensure that victims' rights are preserved throughout the process. And I'll pass it to Ms. French.
I could say ditto. Everything they've said is basically the truth, and it is a job where you have to have a mindset in the morning when you get there. You never know what's going to happen because you think you've seen it all. The next day you find something totally different. You have to have empathy for these people. You have to no prejudgment when you have a case. You have to, even though you've read the case, you familiarize yourself with it before you hit the bench. But yet you have to keep an open mind and make the correct judgment, which you don't always do. But you have to listen to both sides of the case. You have to have an understanding, and you have to have a way to make these people feel comfortable and let them have their say. That's what magistrate court is for them. Now that we're going to be doing our civil cases are going from $5,000 to $10,000. We're going to have a lot more civil cases in magistrate court, and there'll be a lot more people that we're going to deal with that normally wouldn't be in magistrate court. But like I said, this is something we've always had to deal with. In the counties I've worked in, you have the same thing over and over and over. People come to court, they want to be heard. That's basically it. They want to be heard, they want to put their case, and they want everybody to understand. And that's what it's about. Making sure that you make the right decision, because it does affect a lot of people, the decisions we make, whether they're on civil or criminal. We have to be able to make a fair and unbiased opinion, have an unbiased opinion, and do the right thing. And that's what the magistrate does. The magistrate court. Basically, that's what we do daily.
I'm so impressed and wrapped up in these answers, I forgot what you were. I think the gist of it is what qualities should a magistrate possess. I think that, again, I think if you took everything they said and put it together, you got the perfect answer. But to me, the most important things are you have to have an even temperament. Your patients are going to be tested every day. The bottom line is strive to be fair. Not everybody's going to agree with you. If everybody agreed with you, then the whole thing would work. Especially in civil matters, both sides have good arguments. They wouldn't be there if they didn't feel they had good arguments. So you have to weigh them, and you have to rule. I personally try to explain to them why I rule, and I tell them what their rights are as far as appeals go. But to me, it boils down to even temperament, fairness, flexibility, and you also have to have an element of humbleness. I mean, you're not this big, powerful judge sitting there. You're there to be fair and to treat everybody the same. And you're going to get some of these guys have been doing this for years will tell you, I don't care how long you do it, every day something's going to come up to me like, wow, I don't know the answer to that. Or I'm not real sure what I should do on that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with either consulting somebody else or if you want to do a little research. There's no need to shoot off the cuff and just say, oh yeah, here's the answer. So fairness, flexibility, those are the main things.
So last year the legislature changed the law. We now have nonpartisan judicial elections by division. You guys are familiar with that. Do you guys think that was a good move by the legislature? And as candidates running for judicial positions, what are some of your unique experiences in running for office under this new law? Start with Mr. Sisson.
Okay. I anticipated this question. I've been practicing. I personally don't care for the changes. The nonpartisan thing I don't have a problem with. Judges are supposed to be impartial. That makes sense to me. There's three specific reasons that I'm not crazy about the division concept. Out of respect for everybody else's time, I'll just kind of give you the main one. And then if nobody else hits the other two, then I'll come back with it. Under the old format, vote for top 10, everybody was on the same playing field. Okay? Everybody had to get out and campaign either as hard as they think or as little as they think they need to keep their seat or to gain a seat. Okay? This new format extremely favors long-term incumbents, which most of which, with a few exceptions, are running unopposed. I feel like nobody's entitled to this job. You should have to go hard every 4 years. And that's the main reason that I don't like the division thing. I think we should all start out on the same playing field. All 10 positions are up for grabs. And let's go out and try to get them. That's my main dislike with the, again, nonpartisan, no problem with that. Makes sense.
Let me just jump in here to clarify for the people who may be watching. Ms. Crouch and Ms. Ferguson, you're running directly against Mr. Hall, right?
That is
You're
correct.
running for one spot, and Mr. Harshbarger and Ms. Thomas and Mr. Casto, you're all running for the same spot. Mr. Harshbarger. Mr. Sisson, you have one challenger, and she's not here tonight.
That's correct.
Sorry.
No, they did it.
I've thought this over. We've thought about this and talked about this in our meetings as magistrates over the last 10 years, 12 years. Someone brings it up at our school, and we have a meeting with the magistrate committees and things when we were at school. We've debated this and debated it. I have no problem with it, and I like the nonpartisan very much. It's educating the people, the voters now. That's the main thing we're trying to do. That's where I found a lot of difficulty out here, explaining to people how it actually works. Because they have their favorite magistrates or their magistrates that they've voted for over the years, and it's hard for them to understand that we're not running against that individual. So I think it's a system that's going to work eventually, and I feel like it is a good system. I like it. I've always been for it, in favor of it.
Well, in terms of it being nonpartisan, I think that that's very important. I don't consider the position to be a political position. I do believe that it's an elected official position. It should be you should be representing all the individuals in the county, regardless of the party that they are associated with or more inclined to lean towards. That said, the one thing that I can say with it being in divisions is that the community doesn't really have a lot of education about that. I've had a lot of questions about what do the divisions stand for? Does this mean that you're running in RAND? Does this mean that you're running in Nitro, et cetera, et cetera? And I think the community education is a critical piece. changes like that, I think that you have to have a ground game to make sure that the public is, equipped with the appropriate information and can make determinations. To me, that's been the biggest issue that I've seen regarding it. Similarly to what Mr. Sisson said, I think that there is an element where individuals who have been there for extended periods of time based on name recognition may have some advantage, particularly for those like myself who are running for the first time. But that said, hopefully there will be a way to make this a better process. The other thing I wanted to mention too is that, even the clerk's office doesn't even know what the divisions represent. I was told that they're just random assignments of numbers, and that's fine. But they don't know what the ballots will look like. They don't know how to give us information as individuals so we can inform those who are campaigning in the communities we're campaigning in to understand where to even find us on the ballot or what it will even look like. So those things I think are just important pieces to have in place.
I think they've kind of answered your questions. I'm just going to be short on it. I do like the nonpartisan. I do. I think that it makes it more fair. There's no room for politics in judicial races. I don't. I do like the divisions. I think that if nobody wants to challenge you, I think that's fair enough. I think running just like the circuit judges, I think it's fine. People still have the opportunity, if they don't like an individual magistrate, to come against them and let the people choose. I love campaigning myself, as most people in this room can see by my signs everywhere and everything. I love getting out. I love talking to people, being with the people. And that's part of why I like being a magistrate. I like being on the bench. I like people coming in and telling me stories and talking to me. And once in a while, you'll just have some older person that just enjoys coming in and just talking to me. And sometimes I sit down with people and talk to them for long periods of time, especially in night court when we're not real busy. And I enjoy it. But again, I like the nonpartisan and I like the divisions.
Does this mean I need to start telling them stories?
Yeah.
What? Our offices are beside each other. I like the nonpartisan. I dislike the change of what they did, running from putting us into divisions and not running as we all have done for 9 terms. I think at the end of our run, that was a little different. But I will say this. Cecilia and Rusty have put a little spark in my step and have got me going out of it. So I think that is a good thing. I think we'll see what happens. And I got off base of your question, and I apologize.
I like the nonpartisan aspect of running. In fact, it's one thing that led me to file to run. This is not a new thing that I have entertained. This has been a years-long consideration of mine running for magistrate. But one thing that held me off was the fact that it was a partisan race, and I feel that there is no place for partisan politics in the judicial system anywhere. I do think that public education is going to be an issue with this, just because of the questions that I have been asked so far. And in spite of my numerous lengthy explanations, I'm still having a little trouble getting through to people. So I think that this is going to be a learning experience this time. And so it's, I think we're up in the air as to what's going to happen. It'll be interesting.
Well, I too like the nonpartisan aspect. I do have a little trouble with the divisions because it can lead to hard feelings. I have nothing not whatsoever against the word Harshbarger. In fact, I think I voted for him 9 times. But the one good thing about the division system, if you have an incompetent magistrate, you can now target to get rid of him. Before, if you had name recognition, you're incompetent, you pretty well stayed in because of your name. Now, if you're incompetent, and I've understood through the grapevine, we do have a couple up there. I'm not going to go any farther into that. You can now target that person when they're running one-on-one. Like anything else, what it is what it is, so I got to live with it. So I'll just get out and talk to people, go door to door like when I ran for mayor, and see what the people say.
I have a comment if I could say something else. I think in the long run, it's going to be easier too because it's not as expensive to run. Kanawha County is hard. It's expensive to run for an office in Kanawha County, even in the magistrate court system, which, you know, a lot of people, they don't even bother to vote for magistrates because they don't understand it. They've never understood it. They don't care about the magistrate system. But basically, what it's done, it all has done for us is give us an opportunity. We don't have to spend as much money, and you're working all the time anyway. You can't get out and do a lot of campaigning because of your schedules. And I work out of town, so it's really tough sometimes. But it's cut down on the cost of elections. I think it's really helpful to those people who are first-time candidates. They don't really know what the cost is, you know, and you have to get out there for this size of county to get your name out there. But it gets very expensive, but running as an armed partisan and the short period of time that we have, I think it's going to be very, very, very helpful to everybody, especially the new candidates out there running.
Okay, well, Mr. Castro, you sort of anticipated my question there. I've been wondering, I'll just start in your district. What made you, and then Ms. Thomas, you can answer this too, why did you pick that district to run in?
Well, it was the one I thought I might have the most chance to win. Like I say, I've always loved public service and I'm very well acquainted with several of the magistrates. I didn't want to run against them. Personally, the way bad blood can erupt when you run one-on-one, probably the system where you just chose the top 10 would be less likely to have bad blood like this one could conceivably over a period of time do. But you had to run somewhere. You had 10 races, you had to choose one.
I can be a little bit more straightforward. I think that it's time for change. I believe that I have seen enough and heard enough over the years, and I believe that it's time for change in my division. I'll leave it at that.
Anything you want to come back with, Mr. Hartsburg?
36 years, you either vote for them or you don't.
Okay, very good. So how about in the other district? What made you challengers decide to choose the division you chose? Whoever would like to start?
Well, it's a roll of the dice type situation. He and Mr. Sisson, they were the last ones to be elected. I figured it would be a place to start because their name recognition is not as, of course, some people know me more than others, but it's just like I said, it's a roll of the dice type situation. You pick someone that you know that hasn't been in office very long and they're less known than the other parties. It was a place to start. And like I said, for the new candidates, it is a good place to start.
And that was part of it. And this is no disrespect to Mr. Hall over here, but I inquired about the magistrates that were already in, and I asked people what their thoughts and opinions were, and for most people, they really loved some people and really hated other people, and a lot of people didn't know Mr. Hall. So I actually thought that helped, you know, as well again as the fact that he had been newly elected. So that was primarily.
So in your district, it sounds like it's more strategy and not so much any particular.
So, like I said, it is more strategy because it's less known. Of course, Mike is well known because he's been in law enforcement. He worked in law offices, which that didn't get him out in the public. So you just, like she said, you think about it, you strategize, and you figure out what you're going to do. And it really works better that way. And it is all about name recognition. It's magistrate court judges is not so much about experience as it is recognition. It's not about how well you do your job, it's recognition. But it all comes to light because things are a little different than they used to be. Things are more open, and the Supreme Court does not allow a lot of things that they used to allow. They used to just turn their heads on elected officials such as magistrates. They don't do that anymore. You have to follow the code, you have to follow the rules. You have to know what you're doing when you're in that office. And I think it's more, people are more aware now than they used to be.
And I see where
Yeah, and another thing too was just in terms of diversity. it was very important for me not to pick a woman as an opponent. I believe that our opportunities to serve in public office are sometimes limited by our gender. And so I certainly did not want to make a conscious decision to do that. And so that actually played into it as well.
Shall I keep going, or you guys have something?
You want to respond to any of that, Mr. Collins?
As a first-time candidate last time, I beat 2 incumbents. Everybody knows I get out there, and I'm one of the hardest-working candidates out there. I mean, my face is everywhere. I'm the young guy. Some of the older candidates don't get out to in the public as much. In the public eye, I'm a young guy. I get out there and I talk to everybody. I'm at everything around town. You see me out and about in town, and I think that my name recognition is strong.
We didn't mean to seat you by your opponents on purpose. But it's really
No, we did that on purpose.
Did you? Okay.
It works out good that way.
Well, it's handy to remember.
Also, I think my age is an advantage. Like I said, being out in the public so much, because I do get out and see everybody. And
Well, I just wanted to ask, as we established, Mr. Collins finishing his first term. Mr. Sisson, you're just finishing your first term
Yes,
too?
correct.
What do you know now that you wish you knew 4 years ago?
What do I know now that I wish I knew?
When you started?
I wish I knew exactly what the job entailed. I would have run 20 years ago. That's the main thing. As far as just overall knowledge, I mean, being in law enforcement and being in contact with people that are in law enforcement, I'm just all my best friend, Kirk Weiss, who's current sheriff. I've always been around the system, so I knew what a magistrate did. I've been there in the magistrate court as a professional. Even over the years, I had people, after I got out of law enforcement, I had friends call me asking questions about what to expect in magistrate court. So I didn't walk in there with closed eyes. I knew exactly what I was getting into, and no regrets.
well, the seriousness of the drug problem here in Kanawha County is what I've noticed the biggest difference. I had no idea. Maybe I was a little naive to it. When I first started 4 years ago, it seemed like meth was all I had. There was a meth lab bust literally 2 times a night. They'd bring in 3 or 4 guys, because when they bust the house, they'd arrest everybody in the house. And now all I see is heroin. I mean, I rarely see a pot charge anymore, a marijuana charge anymore. We rarely see that. But we do see tons and tons of heroin. I mean, it's what I described of the meth charges is exactly what we're doing in heroin. Except we don't see all these people because there's so many overdoses. I mean, if you talk to the EMTs that come in, they're having sometimes 2 and 3 overdoses in a night, or running a call on overdose 2 or 3 times a night. So I think, we see tons and tons of meth cases in the past. Now it's the heroin, but I don't even think we're seeing even a tip of the heroin problem, because they're overdosing, they're dying or going straight to the hospital or different things like that. I mean, so it was mostly the drug problem here in Kanawha County. It's really opened my eyes to that. And I would be opposed to us starting a drug court in the magistrate court, because we already have one in the circuit court. And I would not be opposed to having that as well if we did start one.
Okay, so I'm curious about how domestic violence cases are being handled these days and how well that's working. Anybody want to chime in on that first?
I will.
Okay.
Because I work in so many different counties, I see a lot of different cases, a lot of different scenarios. When the pilot program first started, I was a little iffy about it, but we don't always agree with the Supreme Court. I mean, I'm sure everybody at this table would say the same thing. You don't always agree with some of the methods they use, but now they've flipped it a lot. They've done a lot of it. So I've asked Magistrate Yeager on different occasions. I've called her and asked her about situations where I've been in other counties, and it's just the repeat. Basically, it's what about it? It's the same people that's that comes back and back to the court time after time with different partners, different situations, but it's always the same thing. And these people, it's a learned condition with them. They grew up under this. That's the majority of them. This is a learned condition for them. And I think what they're doing with well, now it's not a pilot program, it's an official DV court. And I've tried to implement some of these things in smaller counties because being there 6 or 8 months, I see the same thing. It's repeat. And I think one magistrate or 2 magistrates, having been able to work with the family court judge, you see exactly what needs to be done, and you can implement that. And I have implemented some of it in smaller counties, and it does work. You work with the prosecutor, you work with defense counsels, you work with counselors, you work with the different agencies. And it is, you get the feel of what needs to be done. And I think sending these people to counsel, making it mandatory that they do these things, I think it does help in the long run. And I think it will help these people who are repeat offenders. And it's a program that I think is it's going to have to be, like I said, they'll be tweaking it for a long time, just like they do any other program we do. But I think it's going to be successful in the long run, and I think it has been.
Okay. Anybody
I think
else?
it's needed, yes, but we need to make sure that we have the proper supervisions in place. We need to ensure that the magistrate remains fair and impartial.
Well, that's
and
true.
does not become the supreme prosecutor of the county.
Well, this is, like I said, everything's going to be changed. It's all going to be changed occasionally. It's going to be things are going to be changed and switched around. But it does help. It does help in the long run. I think I've seen it myself.
It's an expensive
I
program.
wanna hear from Cal.
I support the domestic violence court 100%. I think what we have seen so far is that it works. It is effective. I agree with Brent. The drug problem that we have and the problems with domestic violence are problems that impact the entire family, and they go across all boundaries, all socioeconomic levels, all sectors of society are affected by these, and these are very amenable to rehabilitative efforts. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how we're going to come up with the money that we desperately need in West Virginia for these programs. But I was very happy to see that the legislature did elect to pass the bill affecting these courts and the expansion of the domestic violence program. I'm anxious to see what counties that they choose to implement those programs in.
So you think that it's leading to fewer repeat offenses? Are people safer?
I think they are. I think that first and foremost we need to protect the victims in those incidents, and then we need to move, if possible. I mean, certainly there are people that are not going to be amenable to treatment; they just cannot be rehabilitated. But I think if we can, in some way, rehabilitate these people, that we can preserve families, that we will see our children benefit from that. So I think at first blush, what we see so far is that it is being effective. And we'll have to wait and see on the long haul what's going to happen.
I did want to just make a mention, Ms. Crouch mentioned counseling, but we have to be very clear when we're talking about domestic violence that we're pushing veterans intervention programs. That's very specific to that particular crime. You look at it in the sense of somebody that has anger management or just needs counseling. That's an individual that will fight anybody and be aggressive with anybody. But with domestic violence, there's a very targeted victim in that case. And 9 times out of 10, or overwhelmingly, the majority is going to be a woman. I also think it's important for domestic violence courts to be victim-centered, because these are cases where you have the highest risk of lethality after court cases or while individuals are going through domestic violence. So that's very, very crucial. That you have lethality assessments, that you have supplemental reports from law enforcement to really assess the situation overall. And I think also too, the fact that she mentioned that it is a learned behavior, that is true. We need to have some things in place that deal with children who witness domestic violence. That is a crucial area, and that's really how you're going to change the recidivism rates in terms of domestic violence, or the rising rates of domestic violence in the county. I will also say that just from experience, the more information that you give individuals, and the more you empower individuals to seek remedies and assistance regarding domestic violence, you probably will see your numbers, we'll probably see our numbers go up, because people know that there's something in place, something there that can actually help them. and that's what we've seen in other jurisdictions.
Across culture.
And
it
these are
needs to be
certainly
worked.
the most dangerous situations that our law enforcement and first responders face. They know when they get a domestic violence call that their life could be in danger. And I think we have to do something to circumvent some of this. And alternative programs seem to be the best effort that we have nationwide. And it's not an answer to incarcerate everyone, although certainly we do have people that need incarceration.
Any other incumbents want to weigh in on how the courts handle domestic violence?
I'll just say this. The concept of the domestic court, I think, is a good one. The fact that one magistrate is tracking people, I think as Mark said, it's doing a lot of good. I think the caseload is enormous, and that's one thing that concerns me because Ms. Thomas suggested law enforcement. When they go to a domestic violence call now, somebody is going to jail. And I don't know that that's always the answer. If they go there and the guy says, yeah, I mean, she hit me in the head with a beer bottle and I pushed her on the couch. Well, they're either both going to jail or he's going to jail. All right? When this is something that could have been going on in their family for 15 years, and tomorrow she's going to be down there trying to get him out of jail and not going to want to pursue it. So I think the caseload doesn't need to be what it is, because I think there's such a strong feeling about domestic violence. Now you've got a guy who branded a wife beater, and he can't hunt anymore because they've taken his guns. So I think it's got issues there on that side as far as the number of people that are getting into the program. But the court itself, I think, is very good. I think Magistrate Yeager does a super job. She works very hard. And I support, I jump in and help her every now and then. I'll do the occasional bond reduction hearing for her if she's got something to do. Or, I've even taken some pleas. I think somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she would tell you if you asked her tomorrow, I'm the only one that does that. So I 100% support the effort and the job she's doing.
Can I just say something also too? The courts don't brand individuals. Individuals brand themselves by their behaviors. So if somebody is assaulting their wife, that's certainly something that's within their control and something that they're choosing to do. So the courts don't brand them that. I just wanted to just make sure that I said that, because domestic violence is very near and dear to my heart.
Well, I know where Mark's coming from, though. The thing of it is, a lot of these people get arrested, and it's a push and shove situation. And then, like he says, they're branded because they're branded at a wife beater or husband. You know, as many women get arrested as men this day and age.
Well, let me just say this: that it takes most victims upwards of at least 6 times before they will even call for law enforcement. They've been attacked or abused that many times before they will even seek help. And then when they seek that help, 9 times out of 10, or I shouldn't say that, but the majority of times, they will want to drop charges or recant. And that's unfortunate. That's symptomatic of domestic violence, and that's something that we have to be mindful of, which is why it's so important that we maintain a victim-centered approach for those particular cases. It doesn't mean that you're going to not weigh the evidence appropriately, but it is what it is. If you're telling me that in the scenario you just described, that he hit her in the head and knocked her on the couch, and they've been doing it for 15 years, that doesn't make it correct, and it doesn't make it lawful.
No.
I'd like to chime in on that a little bit too, and I agree with what you said. We know statistically that domestic violence in the home, or violence in the home, I will say, is an escalating situation. So what may be a beer bottle in the head and a shoving on the sofa today may be a knife at the throat or a concussion the next day. So I think it's important, no matter what the scenario is, at least to be able to separate the individuals involved there and de-escalate the situation, try to get some kind of intervention there, someone in from an appropriate field to assess the situation and try to work on this a little bit.
I think where all this came from is the fact that in the past, before they started this DV court, if a victim did not show up at the court date for the hearing, it was automatically dismissed. There was no, there was just no repercussions for it. there was nothing that the court could do or could do because the individual wasn't there to testify against, the accuser wasn't there. That's why they made this system the way it is. And it is working in the cases that it needs to be in. But there are cases that don't need to be labeled as domestic violence. It's not that. When somebody throws a bag of frozen peas at their husband, they're arguing about bills, that's not domestic violence. That's a squabble that, there's no violence there. But still yet, when law enforcement's called, they go there, someone's going to be arrested. That's why another reason that we're on call 24/7, and in a small county especially, if they have a domestic situation, they call you out to take care of it, so that there's not someone sent to jail over something that's not jailable. You know what I'm saying? They could be charged with domestic violence or whatever the officer deems necessary, assault, domestic assault, not maybe violence. But that way, if the magistrates are available like we are in the court system now, in small counties and here, we've got a court system. They don't always have to go to jail. They can post they can be PR'd, or they can post a small bond. And then they can work it out in the courtroom at the time of the hearing. But we know that domestic violence is very, very serious. But there are cases that aren't considered domestic violence.
I want to say one thing since they're really going, but to the YWCA, I just want you all to know that they deserve kudos because in Kanawha County, they have a person that comes and helps with the DVPs. They don't have to do that. They do that. And I just want to say, if you see them, say thank you. All right.
Well, I'd like to say I want to be part of the solution. And if I would happen to be elected, it means my caseload would have to be increased so that we could put another magistrate on domestic violence or on the drugs. I'd be glad to take on the extra work to allow that to happen. This is a public service. I believe it's a grave problem. As Mayor Nitro often told my policemen, if we lose one of y'all, it'll be a traffic accident or domestic violence. Anytime I heard one of our officers was going out, I said, I hope they got the vest on and ready because something can happen in a heartbeat.
With our new computer systems, every magistrate could, fill in like Mike does for Julie occasionally. It's at our fingertips. This information, it's in our program. They update it, upload it, so we can go in there and find out what's going on. That's what I do in other counties. I go back and look at what's in the computer on an individual if they're under arrest. Then I know what I'm handling. So it's like I said, we've got a lot more information than we've had 10 years ago on domestic. We can look it up. It's right at our fingertips. If this person's been arrested before, if the victims have been involved before in domestics, it's all there for us. So that way we've got better case history on everything, and that's why it's going to work better.
And I'll also choose to throw this in really quickly, just for your general information. I am certified in domestic violence education prevention, and then also too, I have also obtained a certificate of train the trainer from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center on the law enforcement response to domestic violence in rural communities. And I took that course right up at the State Police Academy. I do want to throw that out there.
As long as we're talking about domestic violence, a couple years ago, Mr. Marshbarger, you were censured by the state Supreme Court.
That is correct.
The House Complaints complaint that led to the whole complaint situation.
That is correct.
Have you changed how you handle domestic violence cases since then? Or
It wasn't how we changed. I did not put a denial on it and give it a number. All right. I said, let's go down first thing in the morning and get what at that time, a family law judge was doing domestics as well as the magistrate. I thought that would be a better way or a quicker way, and I was totally incorrect, totally wrong. And have I learned? Yes. Do I have denials? Yes.
I think everyone agreed that we didn't mind that bail bondsmen were allowed to work in the county again. charges might easily get out of jail, and you all don't have like that safety net, anymore.
We can still set the bond as high as we wish. I mean,
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
we can still set the bond as high as we wish to keep dangerous offenders off the street.
Yeah, if you said a cash bond, bail bondsman's not gonna go cash bond.
Yes, they do. They have.
If it's high enough, they
No,
won't.
Judge, one of our circuit judges ruled that they could go a cash bond the same as a property bond.
Yes,
If
but
you
I've
do
worked with
not
them in other
wish
counties, they
them to
won't go
do-
to high cash bond.
If you do not wish them to do that, you need to personally write no bondsman on that. In other words, say you have 150,000 surety bond, which is property. All right, 10% of that would be 15,000. Okay. All right. They can come in and post either or. With a bondsman, you don't get the money back. We still have our 150,000 cash. They can come in and do that as a property bond, 50,000, however they do. You just have to write no
Keep in
bond.
mind, everybody's entitled to a fair, reasonable bond.
Correct.
Well,
But
the thing of it, these
If
bondsmen,
these
they
people,
won't
if
put
it's
that money
if
in.
someone's dangerous, yes, we can set a high enough bond that we can keep them in
That is
jail
correct.
if we feel that they're a threat to society. And I think most of the magistrates that are up there now understand that, and we do a good job keeping the dangerous people off the streets and keep the citizens protected. Does that?
Raleigh County and Putnam County, they've always, and Mason County, they've always used bondsmen. I've worked with them in different counties. If the bond's high enough, they will not go a cash bond. If you put cash on it, the bondsman won't touch it because there's too much risk that they're not going to show up. They're going to, once they get out there, they're gone.
What's the highest cash bond the bondsman has put up so far? What's the highest one you've seen?
I've never
cash
seen,
bond.
never seen them do one. That's what I'm saying. They can do it, yes.
15,000.
You've seen 15,000 cash bond bail bonds.
But it wasn't a cash bond. They posted it the same as a property.
As a 10%, they do it 10%. But like I said, these bondsmen, it depends on the individual. I'm sure they would if somebody that was stable in a job and they've attached to the community. But most of these high cash bonds are for people who are criminals. You know, they're not.
Risky.
They don't have a home address. They don't have a stable place. But like I said, I've worked with enough bondsmen. I've never seen them do a cash bond that's very high.
And to answer Kate's question, then it sounds like all of you incumbents are saying that this using the bail bondsman is not preventing you from keeping somebody in jail if you think they're dangerous.
No.
If it's high enough, if the bail bondsman's probably not going to go it anyway because there's a reason it's high. Either there's flea risk or it's dangerous. And also, if it's a high enough, their fee is going to be so high that the person's probably not going to pay anyway.
And I like bail bonds for the record. And I think it puts some stress off our police too, because now it's their responsibility to make sure that person comes to report something. And they have, I mean, the guys go get them, the bounty hunters and things. And I mean, I think it puts less work. It takes some of the burden off our overworked policemen, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think it creates a possibility for something tragic to happen given the new laws regarding concealed carry. I think that it may have to be reassessed depending on those outcomes.
The bail bondsman will also help. Mr. Hartsberger mentioned earlier the concerns over the jail bill. There's several people that will get released before actually going to self-sexual. So there'll be I think there'll be a notice as bail bonds get more and more active. I believe we'll see a few of the self-sexual. I think we'll see a reduction in the jail bill.
You non-incumbents have anything to say about the bail bonds?
I think there's potential there, but I put this in my response on the questionnaire. I think that I believe that it needs to be closely supervised initially, see how it goes. I don't think that they are going to go for these high risk, serious crimes. You know, they're going to be bonding out more your lower risk people. But I do think that there's potential there for the use of the bail bondsman.
But just about every county in the state uses bonds and except Kanawha County, and that was a conflict several years back with the circuit court judges, and it was being abused, some of the bonds from whoever they were, individual bonds, not bonding companies. And that's the reason that all came to a head. Every other county uses them, you know, it's no problem. But with us being on call all the time, in your, especially your smaller counties, they'll call you out and to go that bond, set a bond or set a PR bond or whatever, you know, they don't need to go to jail there. If we work with them, we can keep these jail bills down. If we do what we're supposed to do and be on call the way we are in all these counties, that it would work.
Unless you have anything to say about bail bonds?
They should be bonded and licensed by the state.
Well, that's taken up our hour, so we very much appreciate y'all coming out and appreciate your answers.
Can we ask you a question?
Sure.
How do you guys feel about the nonpartisan? I mean, it's no secret that anybody that's lived in Kanawha County for years that typically, with some exceptions, the Gazette will lean a little bit toward Democrat and they will other Republican. Can you guys grasp that concept that we're all one?
Well, we have no problem having opinions about school board candidates, and they've been nonpartisan for a long time. So, yeah, that it's a nice change.
The Daily Mail endorsed the opinion, opined in favor of that's not worse.
Well, if they hadn't said it in divisions, if they'd have called it seat 1, if they'd called it a seat 1, 2, 3, 1 through 10, it would have been a lot easier. People would have understood it better. Because it's in divisions or districts,
It sounds like it's
it sounds like that we're running in a certain area in the county, which we're not. It's not like the legislatures, you know, that's not the, you know, that we, if they just said it, seat 1 through 10, it would have been a lot more clear for the public. Are you all, that's another question, are you all going to, when you write this up and give this information about the election, are you going to give some explanation?
Give us some public education in your articles
Yes.
or your
Well,
whatever you put
well,
out.
I think we've done that to some degree already, but yes, we
You have.
continue to do it in the days.
I spoke to a lot of senior citizens in the last couple of weeks, and I've given them basic facts and let them ask questions about it, and it's really helped a great deal because they had no clue. They were very confused about it, and that's what I've been trying to do, give a little education in these areas. The last time we had an election, when I was out there, I was talking to different people, but I had 2 serious deaths in our family 4 years ago when I ran, so I wasn't much out there on the field. So, but now I think it's, I enjoy talking to senior groups and everything, but they're very confused about this.
We will do our part to help educate people. We are going to wrap this up, so thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.